All right. Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining us today for this webinar about Cambridge Business School's Executive Education Program in People Analytics, Transforming HR Strategy with Data Science. Today, we'll be learning about this upcoming program at the business school. But before we kick off, I'd like to talk through our agenda today. So really, we're very glad to have you with us. But here's what we'll be doing today. Overall, we're going to discuss Cambridge Judge Business School, the program faculty who have joined us, but the bulk of our time will be talking through the details of the program. So we're going to discuss the learning objectives and how this course unfolds across time. We'll discuss the learning outcomes, really who this program was designed for and what the overarching benefits of it are. So we'll also talk about the learning experience, what it's like to be a participant in this program, and including what those day-to-day components consist of. So as we make our way through today's agenda, please let us know if you have any questions. So we're joined here today by Peter Romero of the Cambridge Psychometric Center. He's People Analytics Lead there. So thank you for joining us today, Peter. Could you give a quick hello, and then we'll do proper introductions in a little bit.
Yeah, hello everyone, and thank you for having me. I'm always super amazed for every webinar because it's for me. I'm very selfish, right? So it's for me to getting to know so cool people from all over the place and learning from you while you are on the program. So I can't wait to get started. Right?
Brilliant. Thank you, Peter. And yeah, we'll talk through everything about the program over the next few minutes. But first, we're going to talk a little bit about Cambridge Judge Business School itself. So if we move to the next slide, yeah. So let's go ahead and get started. Before we talk about the program, let me introduce you to this broader community at Cambridge Judge Business School and kind of discuss these overarching elements you can expect from your experience. So Cambridge Judge Business School, which is situated within the University of Cambridge, is renowned for its commitment to fostering that impactful leadership and advancing knowledge. It was established in 1990 and has really built a strong reputation as a hub for rigorous thinking and transformative education, really attracting a very diverse group of innovators, creative thinkers, problem solvers, all of these things. And one thing Peter and I have discussed earlier, what Cambridge Judge really thrives at doing is bringing together science and business in one place. So you really get this marriage of these two different disciplines within Cambridge Judge Business School. So, and with that, you'll be joining truly a global community of over 250,000 learners from, as Peter inferred, all over the world. So quite an international population, even where we're joining from today in terms of East Asia and Western Europe, just in terms of the speakers alone. And I'm sure we have quite a diverse audience with us as well. So let's talk a little bit about who this program is for. It really focuses on harnessing the power of people analytics to drive transform outcomes in organizations, individuals, and society. So throughout this program, what we're trying to do is guide you towards envisioning a future where people analytics becomes a cornerstone of that strategic experience, enabling informed decision-making and steering away from this perception of it only as a compliance or reporting function. We really want to make it a much bigger part within your roles in your organizations. So our program is designed to empower HR professionals by equipping them with the knowledge and tools necessary to leverage people analytics effectively. So really, who the program is ideal for, it's for, as you'll see listed here, for mid to senior level HR professionals, analytics professionals, different consultants, project managers, and so many more. So it really is an all-encompassing program in terms of who can attend it. And I think what you'll find as well is quite a diverse population that actually takes part within this program. So if we talk a little bit about the learning experience, I'll discuss how you're going to learn on the program, and then Peter's going to go into real depth about what each individual week looks like. But this program is 8 modules long, and it takes place over roughly 2 months. So what is it like here to be a participant in the program? We start with an orientation week, which allows you to settle into the course itself and begin to familiarize yourself with the learning platform. It can take a few days to feel comfortable in terms of what you'll be experiencing in. So that orientation week is a real good place to kind of get started and get your feet wet in terms of getting to know how you'll be interacting with your fellow pupils and the faculty and support staff you have. From there, you'll have 8 weeks of quite intensive learning. The way these 8 weeks are designed is that a set of content is released at the beginning of each week. So you and your peers will have the entire 7 days to then make your way through the content. You're kind of in cadence with your peer cohort, but your daily schedule is really asynchronous and can offer you that flexibility to learn at your own pace and at your own schedule. So accommodating for what is, I think, inevitable, busy professional and personal lives. So our participants commit about 4 to 6 hours per week on their learning over the 8-week duration of the program. And throughout that time, you'll come across different things like video lectures, so those which are kind of led in brief videos, to webinars, assignments, access to discussion boards, Q&A sessions, and loads of activities as well, which we'll discuss in more detail shortly. But all of these different activities are really aimed at taking your learning and bringing it to life in real time. So as I said, we release content each week. There are learning goals set each week with different assignments that may have deadlines as well. So you will not have all 8 weeks of that content dropped on you all at once. It will be released on that weekly context. So each week, the program will start with brief 5 to 7 minute videos from your faculty. So one of those being Peter. These videos outline the concepts and methodologies that you'll cover within the week. And these are on-demand videos, so you can watch them at your own pace. Once you have a handle on the key learning from these lecture videos, you will then be asked to step into a variety of activities that are aimed around that deep skills building. So many of these activities are still asynchronous, including watching the videos I mentioned just a minute ago, completing these assignments, kind of sharing and just using these discussion boards, and completing the various knowledge texts. You can do all of these based around your own schedule. But as opposed to only keeping things entirely asynchronous, there are synchronous components to the program as well. So we have built live sessions into this program as a means for you to engage in real time and individualize your learning pathways. So these include live faculty webinars and also Q&A sessions where you can ask questions and engage directly with the various course leaders. So it's worth noting, while these are synchronous and they are at set specific times, anything that is live hosted is recorded and posted the next day into the learning environment. So you can continue to watch them if you are double booked and can't make that specific live session. And you will have access to them for the remainder of the program. So you always have that simulated live experience, allowing you to catch up on anything that you may have missed. So finally, throughout the program, you'll also receive feedback from the program's course leaders, who are really subject matter experts that will be reviewing your assignments and guiding you through the program. You'll also have access to the program support team, as you can see there, should you need any additional support, if you have any trouble with the learning environment, things like that. And I think one thing, actually 2 more things that are quite exciting, is that once you complete the program, you still have access to the program for the following year, where you can still go back and revisit and relearn these concepts you've learned after completing the program to make sure it stays fresh in your mind. And I think one very exciting thing about this program specifically is there's also a LinkedIn group where, once you complete, you're invited to this LinkedIn group where you get to continue to grow this professional network with your peers from the program and from past cohorts. So Peter, if you could briefly speak to the LinkedIn network, I'd really appreciate that.
Oh yeah, sure, of course. So as I said, the main point of the Judge Business School and the Psychometric Center is to bring together the cutting edge of technology in terms of scientific insights and best practices from industry. And this is something that we continue to do in the LinkedIn group. It is basically a kind of mutual group where we help each other exchange the latest news, but also where people ask questions, whether those that are on the program or those that already are out of the program, where you find new job openings. So I know that someone got a job recently just through this group. And for me, the main point is a kind of alumni where we have on our hold our hands on, right? It's not about marketing or like what you think about alumni programs are. It's really something we want to make it living and breathing, and we want to really make this a place for exchange. And so yeah, it's quite successful, and I spent much too much time on it.
I love that, but it sounds like a real support network that people would gain from this, which I think is brilliant. As we move on, let's discuss the learning outcomes of the program itself. So at the end of this 8 weeks, you will not only learn the fundamentals of people analytics, you'll be able to transform how your business works with its people. You'll be able to do some of the following things. So really position a people analytics function within your corporate structure, organize, analyze, and leverage the data that already exists within your organization that might not have been historically used in as effective ways as you will now be able to do. You'll be able to generate actionable insights from these different experiments and data analysis you'll be completing. And finally, demonstrate both technical and ethical leadership and how you make these people decisions. So really, there are some key and core concepts that you will be leaving the program with that you'll be able to apply to your everyday roles in your different companies and organizations. So moving on, we'll talk a little bit about the program faculty, and then I'll pass over to Peter. So we have two faculty on this program, two primary faculty, Luning Sun, who is an accomplished psychometrician and researcher, having led many international research collaborations aimed at advancing psychological and behavioral measurement. Notably, Luning has led the development of the International Cognitive Ability Resource, so an open source tool that offers a diverse range of cognitive ability measures for various applications. So through research, Luning really explores new forms of assessment that are enabled by the advancement in psychometric theories and techniques. And then our other program faculty, who you've heard from already and we'll hear a lot more from, is Peter Romero, who's joined us today. Peter has an extensive background spanning 2 decades, bringing a wealth of expertise from organizations like Gartner and SHL, where he spent 6 years in research and development and then 14 years in consulting. He's a founding member of Advanced Cognition Labs, an interdisciplinary institute focusing on research in the area of artificial intelligence. So Peter's research interests include really the intersection or combination of psychometrics and artificial intelligence. As opposed to me reading all of the things that you do, Peter, I would think it'd be great if you could provide some examples of kind of what you're researching. I think that would be really useful.
Yeah, sure. Think about people analytics is always the threshold of 3 components. One is business strategy. Without understanding strategy, it's not worth anything. It's psychometric, which is the ability to quantify human expressions to some degree and then basically make deduce information from it, either what is going to happen next or why things happen, how can you change things so that you have things happening the way you want. And things happening means people behave in a specific way. And then, of course, the third component is the computational aspect of it. And so my main 2 points in this triangle are mostly computational component and language. And language is a part of measuring people. So I'm especially interested in natural language processing. I'm interested in understanding how we can make use of language inside organizations, identifying specific traits from it, predicting future outcomes from it, identifying future warning signals. So, and understanding how this is connected with strategic insights. Strategic insights means, for example, you want to change something in an organization based on a specific direction. Then what you need is a wealth of tools and insights of understanding how we can achieve this. And this is where my expertise comes in.
That's great. Thank you so much, Peter. Well, now I'll hand things over to you to discuss more about this program, starting with the many guest faculty that are a part of it.
Yeah, so thank you. I'm really deeply proud to have so great guest faculty on board, right? So nothing of this would have been there without Professor John Rust, who founded the Psychometric Center as it was still in London, and then moved to Cambridge and grew it over the years to now this world-leading institution that it is. And he will tell you a lot about psychometric tests, how to quantify psychometric measurement, how to understand what it means if you measured something, how to operationalize this for future analysis. But his main point really is understanding the core of psychometrics. A comparable approach is done by Suchi. Suchi comes from the organizational side more than from the psychometric side, and she founded a company that delivers psychometric solutions to organizations, and she will talk a lot about how this is conducted in real time. And she also teaches this to MBA students, so she has also both sides. It's really amazing to listen to her. And on the other side, we have Stephen, Professor Fitz, who basically teaches artificial intelligence. So it's totally other direction. He basically is an expert for deep learning and explains how you can use generalized deep learning models inside people analytics practices, what this means for NLP especially, but also what it means. Think about ChatGPT or GPT models in general, how those can be generalized, where the boundaries are, and where you need local experts slash transfer learning experts to really come up with a specification, a local specification to a more global model. So it's really amazing. And he talks a lot about also how to implement then psychometric measures into a broader range of computational insights. Then on the next level, when we talk a bit more about the application layer, so to speak, we talk, first of all, I'm super proud to have Anne on board, the Vice President of Performance and Deployment at Shell. She talks a lot about basically two things, scientific approaches and the very good example. She talks basically about a chatbot that they created that people can use to plan the career, to get basic human resource services, but also to get career feedback, which is extremely helpful. And the way they implement it is extremely interesting. She talks a lot about experiments, so that you have two groups that are pretty much the same, and then all else being equal, just do a change in one group and then identify what could be potential moderators, mediators, what the potential causation of specific outcomes. Extremely sophisticated. And on a more academic side, this then gets extended by Professor Matz. So Sandra is at Columbia Business School, and she is focusing deeply on analytics in terms of doing an experiment, understanding when you have a measurement. And in her specific business, she looks especially into sensor data, into bigger, for example, cell phone data, and how this can be made use of. But she also did a lot of marketing. And so, she takes those insights and gives little examples, but her main point in this course is to identify causation, identify potential mediators, moderators, and really teach you the other side of scientific thinking. And this is basically a course that is mostly taught by Luning. And then we have the application side again, which is Professor Fukuhara, who is at Keio University and Hitotsubashi University, and he will teach you a lot about the use and deployment of AI inside bigger organizations, especially in organizations where maybe there's not too much data, or where data is one-sided, and how to bring in the component of fairness. And it has a lot to do with identifying potential causations, identifying where specific traits are distributed and how they're distributed, how we could use an AI measure then to come up with a fair outcome, and what it means for the classical psychometric approach. Really interesting. But this all wouldn't be anything if we wouldn't understand what this means in the day-to-day business. And this is where Dr. Lajo comes in. So Roxanne, she's absolutely a brilliant thinker. I think she changed job recently. I got to know her in a project where we worked together. She was a freshly made head of people analytics, and we basically established the first people analytics function. And I was lucky enough to work with her during that period. And she talks about this. She talks what it means to set up a people analytics function. What's the difference between people analytics and IO psychology? What it basically means to get the stakeholders on board, to get the data, to build up your first team, identifying leadership issues, project issues. Short, everything you need to understand to set up an entire function. Then the Professor Belison, Maria, she is, I think she also changed now, she may still be in Smurfit Business School. She talks a lot about the overall strategic positioning of a people analytics function inside an organization, because it's not only important to understand how to build it up, but it's very important to understand and identify where it sits, what the strategic effect of this specific function is, what's the maturity, what's the professionality, how does this compare to the overall organization, how to bring both in perspective. This is where her absolute expertise goes in, and she has also a lot of interesting papers, and some of them we even in the LinkedIn group get as a preview for understanding the academic side, very precise focus on people analytics. And this brings me to Andreas Cupriano. Andreas, he's still at Upfield, I think. I'm not sure. I got to know him as he was at Bank of America. We made a project together. And afterwards, he changed to Facebook. And all of the time, we stood in due contact. We wrote some articles together. And Andreas is an expert for pushing people analytics inside the organization. Because one thing is to create analytics function, the other side is to really engage the entire organization, to make it a digitalized, but also a self-analytics driven organization. And this is where absolutely he comes in. And I'm really glad that he gives us all the rich insight how to deal with stakeholders, how to identify their needs, how to identify which direction they go, see how you can help them, how your processes could merge with their processes. They're extremely interesting. And all together, this wouldn't be anything without the deep knowledge of Dr. Rothman, who is CTO at Psych AI. But before that, he set up a plethora of different data warehouses. And he talks a lot about what it means to do data warehousing. What can we do to basically bring in the information, the knowledge, and put it in one place? What does it mean in constellation to business intelligence, for example? What kind of data warehouses exist? What kind of automated data cleaning exists? How can we bring this in perspective as the way maybe to pre-analyze, but it also means to give meaning to data. And he comes up with an extremely good example in one of his videos where basically they thought they have a business disaster, and in reality they just changed a little product, but they didn't tell anyone. And how to mitigate against such risks. So very, very interesting. It's almost my favorite part. I'm a little bit a geek, to be honest. So I think you will very much enjoy it. So yeah, I'm very, very proud of this combination of strong thinkers and practitioners, and this is exactly what also the Cambridge Church Business School makes, right? This combination of best practices and insights from science and expertise from the best and top companies, right? And if we move on, let's look a bit deeper into what we do. So basically, we have 8 weeks. And as I said, we talk about strategy and operations. Think about those weeks in a way like a funnel. It starts very broad, then it goes very narrow to understand specific things, and then gets broad again. So it starts very broad, and we talk about strategic positioning. And in terms of strategy, what's crucial is to identify, first of all, what is a strategy and what's the strategy of the organization that you're in? What is your team? How is your team set up? What does it mean to have a specific people analytics function inside an organization? What's the difference between strategic people analytics and a reporting function? Where should you sit? Whom should you report to? What does it mean to be shifted towards a shared services organization, and so on? But also, who are the people that drive strategy? Because strategy can be broken down into specific groups of people inside organizations that have a set of different ideas and foci, and basically align with them. And a big part of this will also be to identify where to get your people from, what kind of professional expertise those people have to have, what kind of functional maturity this needs to be connected with in order to make sense. So a very, very broad, very, very beautiful start, because it really gives a coordinate system for everything that is to come. And then we go to the next slide. Right. And so basically, when we talk about data, when you basically have the people and identified the strategy that you're working on, and identified the people that you deal with, the stakeholders, each of those comes with data. And then you need, of course, to identify what kind of data is it, how can you connect the data, what does it mean to come up with opportunities inside this data? So you can basically come up with ideas on what to analyze, or you could basically come up with hypotheses that you got from the field, that maybe when you have a generalist in your team that talks and extracts information on the field that then comes to you, and you start identifying potential data that you will need to solve a specific issue. And of course, the other way around, that you got data and you think about what can we do with this data. And this is very deeply connected with the idea of identifying key opportunities, right? Develop some counterintuitive thinking, and of course, a data warehousing strategy. It's the data counterpart to strategy, but in a more operational sense. So we're closing the loop a bit. And then we come to the next slide. This is then the third week. And there basically we talk about tactics. So once we have the data, once we have some hypotheses, some ideas, some assets, when we understand who basically could participate and who not, then the next step will be to identify how to set up a project for a very concrete for a people analytics endeavor, how to explore counterintuitive hypotheses, how can we take symptoms that we find in organizations and identify what kind of constituent parts could be underlying. And we look into what does it mean, for example, to create root cause analysis and identify what a potential way of disseminating problems is. And this is our first webinar that we do together. And in this first webinar, it's all about identifying three big groups of topics that are ripe for disruption: basic leadership, engagement, and recruitment. And although those sounds already extremely data-driven, you will find out it's the exact opposite. And I will talk in very deep details of how we can achieve it to really go deep and identify the constituent parts and operationalize them in a people analytics way of thinking. And so this will, then we go even further down the funnel in module 4. And module 4 is all about scientific experiments, because now once we have the hypothesis, we have the data, we have the big picture, so to speak, the next thing that is crucial is to identify how we test something inside an organization. It's not enough to just make a prediction, but you need to have an understanding of what the organization is, what the data looks like, and you have an understanding of what kind of techniques you could use and where you could use them and how you can compare random results with consistent results. And so this is all about identifying potential causalities and, of course, identifying ways to communicate them inside the organization. We go to the next slide. This is taught by Luning, and as this one, module 5 is taught by Luning, and I think in week 4 he also gives a webinar on this. And in week 5, and this is basically extremely rich. This is where Professor Russ talks a lot about as well in his videos. There we talk about psychometrics. What does it mean to have a human or be a human, right? Have a human in your organization. How can we measure a human being? What kind of layers of measurement do we have? So from behaviors to latent psychological traits to outcomes, and in the latent psychological traits, personality, motivation, norms, and so on. And and of course, performance measures like, for example, numerical reasoning, verbal reasoning, and so on, deductive reasoning. And the whole point here is to identify, we look a bit more to psychology, to personality. What does it mean to measure one latent trait in the example of personality? And you have the chance to do your own personality test there. It's basically, the questionnaire is called Orpheus. It's from the Psychometric Center, which is an occupational personality instrument that is used, and then you get your feedback on this and you understand yourself better, and you see how you would use that data inside a very hypothesis-driven methodology that we spun up so far. So on this point, you already can do all kinds of traditional people analytics projects that would have been conducted until maybe 5 years ago. But we want to step it further. Therefore, we go now to week number 6. And week number 6 is all about data science. And this is where we will have our next webinar. And there I talk about bottom-up processes. Before this, we had top-down. We have a hypothesis, we have an idea, we go all the way down, and then basically make an experiment and see what works and what not. But the problem is that you usually sit on a plethora of data, and you don't really know what to do with it. And before going into automated models, you need to identify statistical methods that you could use. And you need to identify also a kind of more systemic and automated way of thinking in terms of hypothesis. So you get introduced to the idea of systems thinking. And in my webinar that I give there, I make a lot of exercises. We make exercises together basically to identify a systems thinking which is comprised of top-down and bottom-up processes. Top-down in terms of hypotheses go in, and then basically they're transformed into synthetic data, which then basically is fed into, or feature engineering, which is then basically fed into bottom-up processes, for example, machine learning models. And you will also be taught the basic 101 on machine learning, on statistics. And not that you do this, although you get code for playing around with a simple natural language processing task and a simple predictive model that you can do yourself. But that's not the point. This is a leadership focused seminar. And also, if you're an analyst and you want to become better in your analysis, you have to have an understanding of the big picture. And this is what we teach. On the other hand, if you're someone who wants to know statistics, this is also a perfect starting point, because we give you everything that you need to know, like a dictionary. And I had one participant and who came back to me almost crying. He said, "Oh, this is amazing. The first time I ever understood my analytics guys, and I was able to really give them a direction, and they were grateful for my feedback." Right? And this is what we do there. Then we go to week number 7, where it's all about more AI-driven methodologies, where it's all about identifying, think ChatGPT, identifying what it means to have an AI model, what does it mean for the organization, what does it mean to generalize specific things. For example, if a model has been trained on other organizations, how can you apply this model to yours? Can you always apply it? Can't you apply it? What is the role of a transfer learning expert, and so on? And then, of course, once this is done, you need to be able to communicate. So it's also the other part, because understanding now a bottom-up process and a generalized model, you need to be able to put this into words. It's not enough to say, look, we made a model, but you have to say, look, we found specific trends. We separated noise from data and signal from noise. And now we know something about the organization, but you have to communicate this properly so that in the organization people really understand what it means. And then this leads us to the last week, unfortunately. And as you see, we're opening now again the funnel. And this is then when we talk about ethical leadership. Ethical leadership, I hide this a bit in the big topic of systems theory. So before, systems thinking is about identifying nonlinear trends and complex dynamics inside organization, and systems theory is all about identifying what it means to be on a specific system level, from teams towards functions, towards industries, to really also embeddings of the organization in a broader context and smaller context inside the organization. And the whole point here is really to identify specific to get a kind of X-ray vision. If someone comes up with a problem, knowing systems theory, you will immediately understand what level this problem is. And I use this all the time. Whenever I talk with organizations and someone speaks with me and gives me some hints, I already have an idea. And some people said, wow, it's like mind reading. No, it's not. It's identifying architecture, right? And when you're able to read the map, then you know the street is going left and not right after the next corner. And so, this is what systems theory does. And it's all about ethical leadership at the same time, because identifying systems and problems inside systems and between systems gives you a hint where ethical problems could arise. And so it's all about identifying ethical hurdles that you deal with, from diversity and inclusion towards minority rights, towards problems in specific markets. For example, some markets may have some demands that in other markets would come across as absolutely non-doable, and vice versa. I will also talk a little bit about problems when you use large language models like GPT, because those are usually trained on existing data. And if you look into what data those are trained on, most of this data is English data, and very often American data, because it's just the most widely available data, which means that those models then will behave in a way that is consistent with the average American. which may be orthogonal or absolutely contrary to the way that you want them to behave in a specific home market. And we also do some ethical calibration exercises, and we basically talk about what does it means if you use such models, and what it means for you to, in your journey as people analytics practitioner, to basically really set the direction, but understand the tools, and don't be just someone who uses something and it produces an outcome and you say, oh, that's interesting. No, that's not the point. You learn how to handle those tools, how to handle the suppliers, how to handle the internal workings of your organization, of your team, and also of yourself in terms of thinking and expectations to become really a cutting edge people analytics lead. Can we go further? Next slide. Right. And so basically, and a big part of what we do, which is permitting the entirety of the program, is that we work with case studies, with real case studies. I'm just writing finalizing a book chapter, by the way. A former a professor, I didn't know he was a bit undercover, former participant of this program, invited me to write a book chapter. And so he liked the idea of case studies. And so I bring up a very new case study no one heard so far, but we have maybe 20 case studies. And each of those case studies gives you a different angle. For example, Project Oxygen, where it was about identifying leadership free or leaderless organizations. Or we talk about the ramifications to work from home during COVID. We speak about investment bankers and what it means to, if you have an extremely volatile situation, how to still identify top performers. And we look into how to identify top scientists. Very interesting task, because the R&D department usually doesn't deliver things like a sales department. They do long-term. Also, if it's a short-term endeavor, usually it's a different approach, and it's very interesting to see. And then basically we come up with best practices from the industry, and based on those, we teach specific content in specific situations to give you a very practical component to this. Another practical component is a workbook. Can we go to the next slide, please? And basically, this workbook is organized in different sections, and those sections is in a way what is part of a key takeaway that you get. So basically, how to set up a function, how to generate actionable insights, how to come from description to prediction, but also the other way around, from prediction to description. Systems thinking, identify not only what will happen, but why does something happen? What is the mental model? Or identify the data that you work with in an organization is nothing else but a manifest form of the way of the mental model of an organization. And then how to use this data to solve specific problems and to come up with actionable insights and a plan for your organization. And can we go to the next slide? And this is all part of the working book. Also, as we said, you get this OBPI, the Orpheus Personality Inventory, which is an occupational personality inventory that gives you insights about your way that you interact. And of course, a feature is that you have access to the University of Cambridge Psychometric Center, to a place where very different people from all places meet and exchange best practices. And so I'm always really excited to not only see them, but to see you. Right, and this is almost the most interesting part, to really have this exchange with all my participants and see what ideas they have, where they come from. And yeah, I'm happy about every one of you joining, because I think if there's one person learning the most, that's me. Because every time something new and every time something where I'm happy to be in company of such great people. Let's move on.
That was wonderful, Peter. Thank you so much for that thorough overview. I think it's even what you hit on at the end there. It's so useful having kind of been challenged to think in different ways by the fellow people on the program, by the people you then meet in this LinkedIn group at the end, but even challenging yourself as the faculty lead, I think is great. Really getting everyone to continue to think and learn from each other. So by completing this program, you will earn a certificate of completion from the University of Cambridge Judge Business School Executive Education in People Analytics. What this will do is really allow you to showcase your learning and expertise in this area, or even springboard into potential career advancement opportunities. So you'll gain your learning in the program, you broaden your professional network, and with this LinkedIn group that's part of it, you really gain peers globally that help to utilize this credential to showcase what you've learned. So with that, I want to say thank you everyone for attending. Please feel free to ask any questions through the chat feature, or please visit the website as well to apply now or further inquire about additional information, and we will share that with you. So thank you all so much. And I want to really say thank you, Peter, for joining me today. And thank you everyone for joining us and giving up your time to learn more information about this program. So, and you'll see we posted in the chat where you can register for the program itself, or where you can actually email us directly with any questions about this People Analytics program. So with that, thank you, everyone. And I think we will close if we don't have any questions. Thank you so much, Peter. It's been great learning from you. I think it was really useful to share all that with everyone.
Thank you for having me.
Great.